compassion and understanding. I welcome you and glad to see all of you today. Marco Lance had agreed to do the four-way test. And again, we may have audio problems, but Marco, do you want to lead us in the four-way test by saying each segment of the test, and then those of us in the room or at home can repeat after you? Okay, we'll punt. I will do the four-way test. First of all the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Better friendships.
And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Perfect. That worked out really well. Please be seated and finish your lunch. Is Jen Teskey with us to share a reflection? Okay. Elizabeth's going to share a video.
Our world hangs like a magnificent jewel in the vastness of space. Every one of us is a part of that jewel, a facet of that jewel. And in the perspective of infinity, our differences are infinitesimal. We are intimately related. May we never even pretend that we are not. It's not the honors and the prizes and the fancy outsides of life which ultimately nourish our souls. It's the knowing that we can be trusted, that we never have to fear the truth, that the bedrock of our lives from which we make our choices is very good stuff. Deep down, we know that what matters in this life is more than winning for ourselves. What really matters is helping others win too, even if it means slowing down and changing our course now and then. Beside my chair is a French sentence from Saint-Exupéry's Little Prince. It reads, "L'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux." What is essential is invisible to the eye. Well, what is essential about you? And who are those who have helped you become the person you are? Anyone who has ever graduated from a college, anyone who has ever been able to sustain a good work, has had at least one person, and often many, who have believed in him or her. We just don't get to be competent human beings without a lot of different investments from others. I'd like to give you all an invisible gift. A gift of a silent minute to think about those who have helped you become who you are today. Some of them may be here right now. Some may be far away, but wherever they are, if they've loved you and encouraged you and wanted what was best in life for you, they're right inside yourself. And I feel that you deserve quiet time on this special occasion to devote some thought to them. Whomever you've been thinking about, imagine how grateful they must be that during your silent times you remember how important they are to you.
Thanks for sharing that, Elizabeth. I'd like to introduce guests at this point. First of all, our speaker, Joel Luedke, who will be introduced more formally a little bit later on. And if we have any guests in the room here at the Country Club, would you please stand and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeff. This is my second meeting, and hopefully I able to move forward and
All right. For those of you on Zoom, that was Jeff Beneke. And say that again. Anarchy, Jeff Anarchy, who's with us and is checking us out for membership. So that's always exciting. Is there anyone on Zoom who is a guest or a member of another Rotary Club?
Me, I'm Sarah Buttroff with the Farmington Rotary Club, and I am working with the district on the foundation committee. So I'm kind of going to be your rally person to help with any foundation questions that you guys have. I've been in Rotary for 16 years. I've been the foundation chair in my club for 6 years. I've been past president twice. And I'm from Stewartville, so I love Rochester. So I was super excited I got your guys' club. So yay. But I just really want to talk about the strikeout campaign. It'll be really quick. The strikeout polio campaign is going on right now. We have 9 days left. This is a great opportunity to give to Polio Plus and have some matching recognition points. So if you give a minimum of $100, that's considered a base hit, and Rotary will match that 1-to-1 for recognition points. And then if you give $365, that is considered a home run. Woo! And that, you know, for most of you, it's going to escalate you to the next Paul Harris Fellow. For new beginners in Rotary, that's going to put you almost at a Paul Harris Fellow, which is $1,000. So super fun stuff. And as we all know, the needs just continue to grow. But we are so close to eradicating polio. Which we started out at 350,000 cases back in 1988, and we are currently down to 150 in just 2 countries. So we're so close. We're just trying to push that and try to get into those areas that are really hard to get into. So I've talked too much already. You'll see lots of me. I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm glad you could join us. Deb Christensen, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thanks for inviting me. I'm with the Riser Club that meets on Tuesday morning, and I'm hoping we're sponsoring the calendar raffle as we did last year. We're doing it calendar year, January 1 until the end of December 2021. It's $20 a ticket. If they draw your ticket, you will be sent the check. They'll extra money on holidays and Valentine's Day and all that stuff, but they will then put your ticket back in the pot and you have a chance to win again. So I'm hoping that, I know Joanne's been busy and Elaine and whatever, but I'm hoping that I can sure sell some raffle tickets today. And probably what I do is take your name and your address and I can send it or show up at your meeting or whatever. So thank you.
Great. Well, we'll be glad to help. Thanks for being here, Deb.
You bet.
Do we have other guests that are joining us via Zoom? Okay, well, welcome everyone. A couple of reminders. We're continuing to collect bottled water for the community members who use the day center at the Salvation Army. If you'd like to donate a case of water, please feel free to drop them off at any of these midday meetings, or you can also contribute funds so that we could purchase water for that good cause. To let you know about Rotary next week, our midday meeting will be here and also on Zoom. And I think it's a program that you'll really probably can resonate with everyone. The title is Staying Sane During the COVID-19 Pandemic and Other Stressful Times. Like, how appropriate. The presenter is Mary Berg, who is a Rotarian since 2002, and she is a frequent speaker and trainer for Rotary around the world. She's a practicing clinical psychologist, and she has a vast knowledge of human behavior, emotions, and coping. So make plans to take advantage of that. She presented during one of the district's Friday features, and she comes well recommended by Rotarians who've heard her speak. And now, before Mark takes a bite, I'd like to invite Mark Neville up to talk about Rotary bell ringing.
This additional regalia to Well, good afternoon, everyone. I usually, particularly for the first announcement of the year, like to put on the regalia and so forth and wear my bright red coat, which is usually kind of a shocking reminder that bell ringing season is around the corner. This year, bell ringing weather is already here with bell ringing season just around the corner. So I do want to encourage you to sign up. We're doing 6 weeks again this year, every Saturday starting on November 14th through December 19th. We will have 6 2-hour shifts on each of those days, starting at 8:30 in the morning, finishing at 8:30 in the evening. And this year, all of our bell ringing will be done at the Hy-Vee North on 37th Street. So it's in the entryway, so consider it, we're gonna kind of be inside, which in COVID terms is not, weather terms good news, COVID terms not so good news. Now, there are some special considerations this year for bell ringing in the season of COVID-19. We will have no more than 2 bell ringers at a time. So we're not going to have family groups or other groups, whatever, this year. And I'll get more into that in a moment. We ask ringers to wear both masks and gloves. Your winter gloves or mittens are just fine. They will have disinfectant wipes at all the kettles, and we ask that the bell ringers periodically wipe off the top of the kettles with the disinfectant wipes. And also, new thing, QR codes and bump pay options, I had to ask what those were, will be available at all the kettles. For example, you could tap your phone on the device that they have by the kettle and pay that way without ever having to touch anything and actually have to put cash into the kettle. So technology is here to help us. Now, in terms of the actual bell ring, to provide greater social distancing, ringers, you might choose to divide up your shift, have one person ring at a time, say 15 minutes on or 30 minutes on or 20 minutes, whatever, and then 20 minutes off. One way to do it. Whatever works best for the team. And to stretch Rotary volunteer resources, you might want to recruit a family member or a non-Rotarian friend to ring with you. Remember, we just need 2 people per shift at our kettle on the Saturdays at Hy-Vee 37th Street. So we've done this a lot. We've done this for a long time. We have a tremendous record of service as bell ringers for the Salvation Army. I'm confident that COVID-19 is not going to deter us from doing our usual outstanding job this year. So there's sign-up sheets at the registration desk. You probably saw them as you came in. They're also online as usual. You can go to our website under Get Involved and go down to Volunteer Opportunities, click on the bell ringing link, and it will take you to all the signups for that. Looking forward to a tremendous year. Obviously, there's more than usual number of needs this year with COVID-19. So please help bring in the money, help fill those kettles this year for the kettle campaign and Rotary Building. Thank you.
And thank you, Mark, and others for your leadership with that program. I have an exciting announcement. We have 3 proposed members to consider. One whom you've met today, Jeff Anarchy, who is Vice President of Business Development of the DBS Group. He is proposed by Mark Drips. We also have Lauren Anderson, who is a University of Minnesota graduate, proposed by Ashok Patel. And Dr. Cody Wiles, a Mayo physician, proposed by Bill Wichter. So those applications are working their way through our process, and in accordance with our bylaws, they've now been announced to the club. And if you have any comments about any of those applicants, please speak with Chris Colby or Elizabeth. That's always a great thing to welcome new members. Sarah or Deb, do you have any other comments to make, or as part of your introduction, you've had what you wanted to say?
Well, I'm not sure I mentioned that this is the big fundraiser for Rotary. We used to sell the wine and they've discontinued that. And we sponsor My Book Day, which is usually in early May, and we bring the first graders to the library and give them a book and everything like that. So plus there's other, grants and everything that we're raising money for. But I don't know. I mean, it probably would be best if I came to a meeting, to sell tickets, or I don't know if anybody wants to give me their name and address at the end, and then I can send them information in the mail or whatever. But we sure would appreciate your support.
Great. Anyone on Zoom could use the chat feature to do that, or Deb, you'd certainly be welcome to come to a meeting and make that announcement again. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce past President Colin Aldis, who has a Paul Harris Fellow recognition.
Thank you. Before I hand out this award, or virtually hand out this award, 2 weeks ago today, I left my office early to go to Lake City. Many of you know I have a small sailboat, and it was 79 degrees on that day. And there were projections of 30-mile-an-hour winds on Friday. It's not good to take sails down when the winds are blowing at 30 miles an hour. So I went down on Thursday afternoon, didn't get there until 6 o'clock, took down my sails, and I could have sailed that day. It was a spectacular day. On Friday, my boat was lifted out of the marina at 3:30. You're given a time, so the boat was lifted out, and I spent 3 or 4 hours in preparing it. Again, a gorgeous 82-degree day, as was Saturday and Sunday. And as I was lamenting to my wife and many others about pulling out my boat, she said, "Get over it." I am very pleased now that my sailboat is out of the water and covered and wrapped and put away for the winter, as I would not want to be going down there today to get a boat ready for winter. So I'm sure many of you have boats and cabins, and you're doing the same thing. But today I'm here to present a Paul Harris Fellow, and I'm wondering if Carolyn Bailey is even, I know she's not in this room, so I'm hoping she's on the screen somewhere. I can't see her.
Yeah, she's on a call.
Okay, great. So she's on a call. I can't see her, but I hope Carolyn is here. So I will formally read the remarks that I have reduced, that the Paul Harris Fellow recognition acknowledges individuals who contribute or who have made contributions in their name of $1,000 to the Rotary Foundation. And I do indeed have Carolyn's pin in front of me. Rotary established this recognition in 1957. I'll pull it out. I don't know how well people can see this in Zoom world, but there is a pin on this. It's named for our Rotary founder, Paul Harris, who started Rotary International in Chicago in 1905. Multiple Paul Harris Fellow recognition is given in subsequent $1,000 levels, and in the past week, we've had some of those recipients receive those awards. From an initial funding level, this is kind of what I like, of $26, today the foundation has over $1 billion. It has one of the world's largest and most prestigious international fellowship programs in the world. And you should know you can make tax-deductible donations to the foundation. When you do that, you support disease prevention, you provide clean water, you support education, you grow local economies, you help mothers and their babies, and you promote peace. It gives me great pleasure today to virtually present this to Rotarian and former board member Carolyn Bailey, and let's give her a round of applause. Carolyn, I will put this in the mail to you.
Okay, I'm going to introduce the program. I do want to acknowledge that I wish that our sound was working so that Lori Luedke could introduce our speaker, because Lori, our Rotarian friend, is the mom of our speaker, and I'm sure a very, very proud mom. So it's a shame that that didn't work out, but it's my pleasure to introduce Joel Luedke. And let me tell you just a little bit about him. Joel is the Assistant Athletic Director of Athletic Training and Sports Performance at the University of Wisconsin, LaCrosse. He received his undergraduate degree from the University of Wisconsin in Madison in athletic training, and his master's degree in exercise science from the University of Kansas. He is currently in school for a PhD in athletic administration and leadership through Concordia University, Chicago. Joel has been at UW-LaCrosse for 7 years, with previous work at Oklahoma State University and Kansas. Along with these roles, he hosts a couple of podcasts focusing on the athletic training profession and also general health, nutrition, and performance. So we're excited to learn from and hear from Joel Luedke.
So before I shared my screen, I just wanted to see how the sound was working for everybody. So I got a nod from the country club, so that seemed to be a good thing, I think, and from Zoom, so perfect. Let me my screen share. So thank you for having me. Excited to give the talk. Was trying to think of the best thing to talk about, and really it came down to talking about athletic training just as a profession. It's unique in what we do, in all the different things and all the different areas that the profession has gone. And so this is really just going to be kind of a highlight and kind of a broad overview of everything. And then ultimately kind of coming back around with, the value that the profession and the people in it can bring to communities, whether you have kids in sports or grandkids or whoever it may be, and really the push to kind of help expand the profession into the future, and really focus on healthcare for a lot of people. So this is a meme that has come up multiple times. I thought this was kind of a unique way to get started. These were popular a couple of years ago. A lot of misconceptions or different notions of what athletic trainers do. We are more than just taping ankles and water on the sidelines, as you see a lot potentially during TV games. Sometimes it does feel like We are carrying the weight of the world on our back within the athletic department, and COVID has put that to the forefront for most of us. But then really trying to get into what we actually do in terms of the healthcare of not just athletes, but really have been expanding beyond that. So the definition of an athletic trainer, this is expanded and one that's become really important for the profession as we move forward, as being a licensed healthcare professional practicing in the field of sports medicine. I believe to date, we have 49 states that licensure is for athletic training. California is the only holdout, I believe, at this point, and they are constantly working on that, just working through the legislature, but being recognized by the American Medical Association as a allied healthcare professional has been something that's really been important to the profession as we've continued to advance and move forward. For the profession, they have what we refer to as the Strategic Alliance. So we have the Board of Certification, which is ultimately our national certification exam that everybody has to sit for in order to become a certified athletic trainer. Our National Athletic Trainers Association, or NATA, is our national organization. And then the CATE, or the Coalition of Accreditation on Athletic Training Education, is ultimately what sets the standards for all of our programs across the country at the university level to then have people sit for the Board of Certification exam. So just some quick objectives. I'm going to be mindful of the time, so if there are questions at the end, we can get that. Just a little bit more on who I am and why I'm here talking about athletic training, other than being Lori's son. Athletic training, what is it? Where did it come from? Why is it important? Different settings within the profession and the unique access to healthcare that athletic trainers can provide. How do athletic trainers fit into a medical model? And then just a highlight of some of the things we do that are within the scope, but also not directly tied into athletic training as you may traditionally know it. So not getting too far into this, currently, as I said, I work at UW LaCrosse. This is my 7th year. I also am a paid hourly athletic trainer through Mayo Clinic Health System, as we're working to do some stuff with the local fire department in terms of some of their injuries and performance training. I do host a couple podcasts, one just focusing on athletic training, that's the Athletic Training Chat, and then Clinically Pressed is one that I've got a couple co-hosts with, and we just try and make the complicated simple around health, wellness, and nutrition and performance, as it can become very dizzying very quickly with that. So I was born and raised in Rochester. Obviously, my parents still live there. I didn't know what an athletic trainer was, nor did I have one in high school. I didn't play collegiate athletics, but honestly, I didn't know what it was until I went on my freshman orientation to Madison, where I got my undergrad in athletic training, went on to the University of Kansas for exercise science, and now I'm currently going back for a doctoral degree. I've worked a lot of cross country and track and field in my career. It is now kind of balanced out between that and working with football, which is what I work with currently at UW LaCrosse, along with golf and tennis. Makes for unique days with a lot of different injuries, but overseeing all of the different sports teams and the staff that takes care of them is part of my current role. And then kind of starting all the way back, and this is where it kind of ties back into the education. Athletic training is really making a shift now with what the education was. It is had been always a bachelor's level program, and that's what I did. I didn't know what I wanted to do, except I thought I wanted to do kinesiology, which I happened to see on the outside of the weight room out at RCTC. I heard about athletic training when I went on my freshman orientation. I got to be around athletics. It was medical, sounded pretty interesting to me. And ultimately here I am now. So historically it has been a bachelor's program, but the transition has now started for the last several years in transitioning to a master's level program. And that is going to be required across the country by the year 2022. So we're getting close. There's been a lot of different types of programming. blended where you're going undergrad right into a grad in either a 3-2 or 4-1 setup, or a more traditional graduate, graduate model, which is what we have employed at UW-LaCrosse, where you will complete your undergrad and then move on to your 2 years of school for your graduate degree in athletic training. It's really been a big focus. It's been a split a little bit in the profession in terms of, are we behind? Did we really need to do this? But they're hoping that it's going to increase retention. Some programs are going to drop that maybe have only had 2 or 3 people on a year and that are not living up to the standards that have been put out. But it's also allowed for an increased skill set to be taught, because we are able to focus on athletic training specific teaching, similar to a PT or any other post-professional medical degree. And you've got the majority of your basics in anatomy and physiology and these different things already completed before you get to that level. So we are in year 2 of our master's program, and it's going well so far. So job settings. I have lived my career so far in the quote unquote traditional setting in the collegiate level. We're working with student athletes. Includes kind of the high school and professional. There are also a lot of performance centers around the country that employ athletic trainers, but really it's continued to expand. Clinical work has become really big. We have a couple athletic trainers that we work very closely with through Mayo Clinic Health System that serve as physician extenders for our team physician. That's helping speed up the process in which people can get seen, help our team physicians see more people, and ultimately potentially help with starting rehab right then and there after you've been seen by the doctor, as you wait to get set up for PT or whatever it may be. Academia is obviously a big part of it, as we have professors in all these programs. That has been a little bit more of a shift of needing more PhD level candidates for that as the transition goes to a master's program. I didn't highlight it before, but there are also several doctoral programs in athletic training that are very much focused on the clinical skill set that people have gone as well. And then really some of the biggest changes have been come in the emergent settings, such as industrial, different ones to work with public health. In Wisconsin, we've gotten to know an athletic trainer that works with the Milwaukee Fire Department. Amazon has been hiring people in the Twin Cities as athletic trainers, along with, I believe Delta was at one time. So really, the skill set that we have has been applied in a lot of different areas. Here's just a little bit of a breakdown. I did the math and it's only 85%. So I'm guessing some of the membership either wasn't currently working as an athletic trainer or just didn't submit that information, but it has very much kind of flattened out and seeing a lot more opportunities coming out. The 2% in the emergent settings, as I mentioned, is going to continue to grow. I think people are starting to see the value in athletic trainers when it comes to work loss. I've gotten to know an athletic trainer who works down in Florida at actually a beer and liquor distribution company, just working with their staff there. Others that work with crews that do highway, and big time construction. And so working with those people to help them get back or just not miss work in general has really been something that the profession has been promoting and people are finding value in. So where does the athletic trainer fit in? Really, I feel like we're a really big gateway, especially in the student athlete realm. So for us, we're fortunate enough that we've got a lot of resources in terms of people that can help with. We work with some physical therapists, chiropractors. We tie in very closely with our strength and conditioning or sports performance program. And so really, we ultimately can be that person that's helping direct the care. We're that initial front line and then go from there. We work directly under a physician and their license currently is the model. And so knowing when and where a referral is going to be beneficial if it's falling outside of our scope or we need to move further. That is something that I think is really unique in a lot of ways, especially in the high school setting, is for people, depending on where they are geographically, that may be the only access they have to healthcare in any sort of form. And so having someone that they can bounce ideas off of or ask questions to about things that they may not be able to go to because of insurance issues or anything like that, it makes it a really unique opportunity for people that want to work in the medical profession and get exposed to a lot of those different things depending on where you're at. So what do we do? And again, this is where I think we're really unique, is we basically are taught the skill sets to go from an emergency situation all the way back to when somebody's returning to play or returning to work or whatever it may be. And one of the pictures before where I was down kneeling with someone, that was one we were concerned about, a cervical spine injury. And we were the first ones to get there as we're covering the game, and then work closely with our team physician and the EMTs to perform all the spine boarding and things necessary to safely transport that athlete to get to the next level of care that they need to ensure that nothing traumatic has happened. So really the broadness of our profession and what we learn is what it makes it unique. I have a lot of respect for physical therapists, so please don't take what I'm saying as any knock on them, but we hosted tournaments and a physical therapist will travel with the team, and they will, that one specifically was the first to mention is, yeah, you know, if anything goes with, you know, musculoskeletal stuff, I've got it, no problem with our team. But he goes, if there's anything emergency, that's all you guys. I want nothing to do with it. I want you guys to take it. You're the experts. And that's not to say that they couldn't do that. That's just the difference in the training and the focus of what we have versus them. Now I would go back to them, and if there was some very complex case, I would definitely defer to them because I don't necessarily have that skill set that they may have. So we really focus on the injury and illness prevention and wellness. That is an area I think athletic training can have a huge impact, in that we have a lot of people on the back end that can help with the examination and the diagnosis and the rehab. But what are we doing to focus on trying to prevent or at least make people more resilient to injury on the front end? And that can be in great collaboration with strength and conditioning or personal training in that regard. We do examinations, assessment, and diagnosis. We go through all the musculoskeletal clinical tests. We're well versed in concussion evaluation and all the way down to care, the immediate and emergency care. I've been fortunate to not have too many super traumatic injuries that I've dealt with in my career, but I've had to spine board multiple people. There's been dislocations. Thankfully, it has not gone beyond some of those musculoskeletal things, but those are things that we are trained in. Therapeutic intervention, all of the fancy machines and equipment that we can have, plus the rehab side of it all, is something that we're also trained in. And then also just the administration and professional responsibility, documentation, emergency action plans, policies and procedures, all of those things are stuff that we take in as our education and also have to apply in our job. I joke sometimes, but I think it's kind of the description of the prevention is we're kind of a mild wide, but depending on what you're doing and where you're at, maybe only an inch or two deep. And I think that's something that the profession is trying to figure out how to best address. Of, do we almost need to specialize a little bit within the profession so we can become the experts on different things? Tend to refer to us as a jack of all trades profession when it comes to musculoskeletal things. And beyond that, because we do see so many things and have athletes coming to us with not just injury questions, but illnesses and things that we end up having to work through in coordination with team physicians and beyond to help them get back to where they want to be. COVID-19 has been something for everybody, you know, an experience. And so within the NCAA, in my world, we have designated healthcare administrators, and that is my role, where it's a direct connection to the NCAA and trying to implement all the safeguards and protections that we can to have some version of athletics. In the NFL, they've been naming most of their head athletic trainers as their infectious disease coordinators, and they are leading the team of trying to figure out how to best prevent, you know, COVID-19 from being an issue for anybody within that realm. So it has been a continued learning experience in that regard with just some new responsibilities. Just some interesting things within athletic training that I think, again, bring us kind of a unique skill set and unique offerings. We can be trained in musculoskeletal ultrasound or potentially utilizing that in a cardiac screening if the training is there for that. At UWL, we actually purchased an FDA approved ultrasound that plugs right into an iPhone or iPad, and we utilize that along with our team physician who does a lot with that. So we have taken training through him and through other courses to be able to identify some common things that we can see on diagnostic ultrasound to help determine if we need to move beyond that to get further imaging or further referral. Concussion testing, we do neurocognitive baselines. We've utilized the King-Beavick test, which is utilizing your eyes to assess your ability to comprehend things. Standard assessment of concussion and balance testing. We do cryotherapy, whether that's return through aquatic rehab or just looking at the different options for recovery. Endless amounts of things that we can utilize and have exposure to. Depending on the state, we can potentially do dry needling and offer that as a treatment plan, depending on training and certification when it comes along with that. Tying a little bit into strength and conditioning and performance, not spending a lot of time on this. This is something that I didn't expect to be part of my career. I expected to work with somebody with it. It has just worked out that I oversee both areas currently. It is a huge interest of mine, so it worked out well, but really our collaboration with that group in the traditional setting or beyond in any setting is really beneficial because it can be so complementary to each other. I will be the first one to say most efficient rehab programs or prehab programs for ACL or any other type of injury is really good training. And so having people that understand that and are building that in is really important. And so that's where with the credentials, the certified strength and conditioning coach or the CSCS can be really beneficial for an athletic trainer to pick up, to have that background. But that's ultimately going to benefit who you're serving, and that can be really beneficial for somebody in a smaller collegiate setting that maybe doesn't have the resources for a strength and conditioning coach, or definitely a high school setting where we can solve a lot of our problems before they happen by doing movement-based programming and really focusing on trying to make people more efficient movers instead of just putting strength and size on them. Sports science is something that has become huge within just athletics in general. This is something we also get introduced to. And again, this is all contingent on resources. We are very fortunate at UWL to have a very strong exercise science program, well with working with our partners at Mayo Clinic Health System and their sports scientists. So we do a lot of nutritional related stuff to help our student athletes understand the importance of it. We do some movement screening, both with actual screening tools, but also just with motion analysis and looking at how they move on video, training and monitoring. Everything we do there is planned out. We try and use the resources that we're getting and the information from the screening to build our training program and really make it the most efficient thing possible. And then going beyond that with GPS tracking or utilizing heart rate to look at training loads and use that information to see if we can help limit or potentially eliminate injuries that happen in the process of training or competition. Research, again, just kind of tying that in, we've been very lucky with that. We've done some research collaborations with Mayo Clinic right out of Rochester. And then, as I mentioned, the local health system. We've also are part of one with the other health system here looking at vertigo with concussion. So really we get to do a lot of cool things. And this is all without me being a PhD or focusing my whole career on just the research aspect of it. I'm able to still be plugged into this. It's an interest of mine. I find it fascinating. We can answer our own questions. We've really made it a focus for us. And I think a lot of athletic trainers do this is, finding answers to your own questions within the context of where you're at. So you're really getting multiple things accomplished by doing one research study. And so we've got several of them going, but, concussion wise, we've been part of a big blood biomarker study that was run out of TCU that we happen to be a part of, nutritional interventions, post-concussion to see if there's something else we can do to help people recover. And then just again, as you can see there, the list of all the different things that we can potentially go and utilize and do this from the realm of being an athletic trainer and not necessarily just a PhD researcher. Although they are very nice to have, because when it comes to the writing, I will defer to them in a heartbeat. Just a couple other unique things about the profession. I've gotten to go a lot of places I don't know that I would have been able to go without being in the profession of athletic training. Not so much anymore with UW LaCrosse. We stay typically fairly local. I did get to take a very exciting trip out to Dickinson, I believe North Dakota, the other year. That was pretty exciting, and 16 hours on a bus both ways with the blowing out a tire along the way, but I digress. But I have gotten to do some cool things in terms of going to New York City. We actually took a training trip to Puerto Rico when I was at Kansas, and a few other places in the country I wouldn't ever get to go. And then beyond that, just by chance, got to know some people at Mueller Sports Medicine a couple hours down the road, got talking to them about just all kinds of different things. And sure enough, I find myself traveling internationally to go teach similar professionals around the world about the basics of taping and what we do in the US and in athletic training. So I've got the opportunity to go to India a couple of times, which I would never have thought of going to India had it not been for somebody asking me to go. And so just the uniqueness of being able to connect with those different people, learn from them, and ultimately share knowledge across the world is pretty unique, and something that was lucky for me just in the situation I found myself in. Kind of wrapping up, advocating for athletic training moving into the future. One of the big sticking points for athletic trainers is just that we are athletic trainers, we are not trainers. All the people that ask what I do, I follow up with, I'm an athletic trainer and I work in sports medicine. I don't just write lifting programs or work people out that is beyond medical professionals. So the hashtag AT for all has become bigger lately in terms of looking at the access to athletic trainers across the country. The argument of paying salaries, not settlements, has been something that has been very big in terms of looking at concussion related issues that have come up, and there are headlines, or exertional heat illness. It seems to be, unfortunately, every year, not just at the high school level, but at the collegiate level even, that these exertional heat deaths occur when they are 100% preventable and you can save people's lives if it does happen. That is a big focus of the Corey Stringer Institute, who was founded after the former Minnesota Viking had passed away from exertional heat stroke. They also run the athletic training locations and services program. So what they're looking at there is they basically created a grade of high school access across the country, state by state. 37% of high schools have a full-time AT services. 75% of school, or 70% of schools have some access to athletic trainers. That can vary from place to place. I know just even within our family, my sister goes and stops at different places where she's not there full time, but she does go in and check in. So they do have access, but not somebody necessarily there. And then they have come out with a ranking system of, you know, if you were 100% by the best rules, you would score 100% when it comes to best practices. And then they would go and they ranked all of the states, and Minnesota came in at 45th, having fulfilled only about 39% of those things. Wisconsin was 12th at 59%, and that's looking at athletic training access. That's looking at policies and procedures that are in at the state association level, and what that looks like for each place. And then really more recently, the argument has come about of where should that funding for an athletic trainer, especially in the high school setting and beyond, come from. A lot of it has been done, as I believe it is done locally for you all, as it is done here. It comes through a hospital or a health system. That is great. But we've seen, unfortunately, with COVID and the impact that it's had on other people and just business, that some of those have been rescinded because of the costs. And so now the conversation is coming back to, well, should that athletic trainer be hired directly through the school district or the school itself in order to help ensure that it is funded and important and to be there? And so those are some of the things when it comes to advocating that have come up and are going to be big topics as they go through into the future. And so kind of bringing it all back around, it is a profession that does a lot. We can be utilized in a lot of different ways. Athletic trainers during COVID have helped out with testing. They've done temperature screening. We're very versatile as a profession and generally pretty adaptable in what we're trying to do and just be around to help. And so it is a unique profession. I think they can bring a lot of value. We're not overly expensive in regard to some of the different things, but with that was my presentation. I will stop sharing. And yeah, if there's questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I've got that up so I can see it if you're on Zoom, or if there's a way to get them through the country club, that works as well.
Joel, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sounds like in many ways you already have your dream job, but you are continuing your education. What would ultimately be your dream job?
That's a great question. Ultimately, I think I'd like to continue to move up into more of the administrative role, but still have some connection to working with athletes, or patients with the physical skill set. I've had a big shift personally in how I view leadership over the last couple of years in my role, and really trying to advocate for our staff and not running people into the ground. I did a GA where I got paid $1,500 a month as a stipend. I thought there was more, but I still contend to this day that there was a typo on the job posting, and it wasn't my fault, but I ended up having to take out loans because there wasn't a tuition waiver. But I worked 45 hours a week or whatever it may be. Wouldn't change it for the world, but ultimately looking back at that, don't know that that was treating that position the way that it should. And so we have some part-time positions at UWL that I'd love to get more funding for, but we just don't have that option. But what I can control is their hours, to make it that they're earning a reasonable wage there, and just continuing to help empower athletic trainers to be able to set boundaries with that and understand we work with people, not for coaches in that regard. And that's part of a medical model. And so continuing to work my way up in administration to like fully get that implemented and have that kind of grow out and kind of shift that mindset is really what I'm hoping to do in the future.
Great. Questions from the room? Well, thank you, Joel. That was really fascinating. Thanks for giving us a view into a world that is unknown to certainly me, and appreciate your time. In appreciation of your presentation today, we will be offering you to make a donation as an honorarium for your presentation. And Elizabeth will be in touch, and you can choose from some local charities such as the Boys and Girls Club, Cradle to Career, First Steps, the Jeremiah Program, or the Rochester Public Library, where a donation will be made in your name. So thank you again for your presentation and for sharing your time. Let's give him a round of applause. And the late breaking news about President Chris, just heard from Sue Colby that Chris is out of knee surgery. It went well, and he is doing well. He would appreciate you sharing the news with the club. So you've heard it as it happened, and if others are wondering, so far so good for Chris, and he'll be back with us as soon as he's able. So thank you again for being here. As we adjourn, go and serve, and remember that Rotary opens opportunities. We are adjourned.